So my next device is going to be an iMac. So that's gonna get a lot bigger here. And let's actually see it here. And something that I haven't really been changing is the corner radius for my device or the stroke width. If you wish to do that just to make it more interesting and add more details, you can also do that. I'm just gonna do it for this one because, as you can see, the corner radius is a lot smaller. So I'm gonna show you how to do that, and then if you want to do it for every single device, you can totally do it. And I'm also gonna do it for the Apple Watch because it needs to be a lot more rounded. So once it stops spinning and it gets to its final position here, we want to resize it. We want it that, like, at this point it's already resized and it's already like the iMac size. So let's see, if you go to, once it starts spinning to the right, that's when the resizing is going to start. So we're gonna hold our size up until this point, and then we're gonna start resizing. So we can go from here to maybe 4, almost 5 seconds. And then at this point, we're probably gonna have to change the position a little bit because the device is a lot bigger. And also when you add an ease animation like what we're using, it kind of like makes it shift a little bit. So I wanna go here to the screen, use that resize tool. We're gonna match the size of the iMac, just like that. And then you can see that the origin is also getting automatically animated right there. So let's just make sure everything's still staying in place. If you hold the position and the origin in place, it should stay centered. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but this is kind of like a tricky part of this because we are turning this screen into like a bunch of different sizes, but at the same time, we want it to stay centered. So it's working for now. We don't have to do anything else, but it's key that you do have that origin animation here so you can kind of move along with it. And then let's see how that's looking now. Yeah, it has the bounce effect. It's going right where it needs to go. And then I do want to add the corner radius animation as well. So I'm going to keep it at 30, just like I had it, up until this point where it starts resizing into an iMac. And then I'm going to go to the iMac, like the iMac's final size, and I'm gonna reduce that to maybe around 10. So I think that matches a lot better. And like I said, you can also do a stroke width animation just the same. You know, you start at, I think we have 4. So maybe we do want this one to be a little thicker. So let's just do it real quick. I'm gonna start at 4. I'm gonna animate the stroke width. And then I'm gonna hold that up until this point where it starts resizing. And then at this point, it just goes from 6 to maybe like 10. So, you know, it just gets a little thicker. Cool. Now I'm gonna turn off my reference. I'm not gonna need that anymore for now. And let's just see one more time what this is looking like. Perfect. I want 3 details for this. So I want that band that goes like at the bottom of the screen. So maybe this size right there. Let's see if I still have that purple in there. Yep. And then once again, make sure that it's aligned. And then I'm also gonna create 2 more shapes with rectangles. So there's gonna be like this base for my iMac. So it's just a rectangle again. I'm gonna align that. And then I'm also gonna make a 3rd shape for this, which is gonna be, I guess, probably like a rounded rectangle. I'm taking some creative liberties here on this iMac design. Let's use the resize tool so it doesn't do that weird resizing. And then corner radius. Okay, and then it's right in the middle, so that's all good. So let's go ahead and animate these parts. So for the frame, or what I'm gonna call the frame, let's do like a reveal animation that goes like this. For this one, let's do the opposite of that. It's gonna be like a reveal animation that goes like that. And then for this part, we're gonna do the same thing we did for the MacBook body, which is gonna be like a scale up and opacity animation. So let's start with this one. And we're gonna need a mask as well. So I'm just gonna repeat the same process that I did before for the notch of my MacBook. I'm gonna grab these 2 and then create a mask. Once again, let's do that. And then let's test it. That's gonna work right there. So I'm just gonna do, once we get to this point, so we have the rotation, it gets to this point. So at this point, I want to have that animation go from a lower position here. Let's go forward to maybe 6 seconds, and then lower position from the frame of the device. So something like that. Again, let's do easy in out back animation for this. Maybe not easy in out back, but easy in back. And that should work. There we go. And then we're also gonna do an opacity animation. So that's 100%. We just need a couple of frames to make it show up. So, and then we go from 0 to something like that. I think it's too long. I think it should be a little bit quicker. Yep. And then we're gonna do something very similar for our, what I'm gonna call the base of my iMac. So I'm gonna create another rectangle for a mask. I'm just gonna center it, and we need to make sure here that both shapes here are kind of like under or like behind the frame, or like at least on top of it. It doesn't have to be behind, but on top of it, so it doesn't look like it's coming from like down here or something, because that would look a little weird. So I'm gonna create that mask again, and then let's do, at the same time, let's do another position animation. So that's the position, that's our final position. Let's go forward. And then we can also do, let's see if, oh, I forgot to move it to, to the initial position. And then, yeah, if we do that bounce, it doesn't look right. So let's do easy and back. Yeah, that's perfect right there. And then once again, we do the opacity to hide it before, like we don't want it to show before, like if it's too early for it. So let's just bring this down to 0. Boom, we have that happening. Like if you want it, like if you didn't want this to show up at the same time, you can always move this a little bit. Maybe that would be a little more interesting. Let's just leave it like that. And then finally, the bottom part of the base. Let's, so I said I was going to do like a scale animation, like for the MacBook body. So let's call this base B. And then I think this one should definitely show right after this one touches its position. So I think around here. And then let's select it, animate, scale. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to put it on top of the other one. That way it's not showing, it doesn't look like it's separate from it. So base B, animate, scale. Let's put it all the way on top of it, actually, just aligned right there. And then I have my scale right here. That's the final position. Let's go forward and then back to the initial here. And then it's going to go from smaller. It doesn't have to get super small or anything, because we're just going to see it once it reaches like a size wider than the background. And then we're also going to do an opacity animation right here. So from 0 to 100, just add that here. And don't forget to add the bounce. In this case, the easy and out back bounce should work perfectly fine. And there we have it. Yeah. So that's our third device. Say one more time. Again, you can get a little more creative if you want to add more details, maybe add a keyboard to the iMac, you know, all kinds of cool stuff there. But for now, I think I'm just gonna leave it like this. And then now we can add the final transformation for our device, which is going to be the Apple Watch, and definitely the trickiest one, probably, because it's gonna get way tinier. So we have to make sure that it's staying as centered as possible. So I'm gonna I'm gonna hold this for a little bit so we can actually appreciate our iMac for a second. And I'm gonna repeat pretty much the same steps that I did for the MacBook. So I'm gonna reverse the animation of the elements so they go away, and then lower the opacity so they disappear, and then hold this for half a second so we can see it before it starts turning into an Apple Watch. So I'm gonna do here, my scale is gonna hold there, and then my opacity too. And then I can also, well, I want everything to kind of like be at the same place here. So, you know, once it reaches its final shape, everything's staying the same. And then the frame as well. And then at this point, I'll go forward maybe like half a second here, and then add the keyframes that I have in the middle. So they kind of like reverse whatever they did before. And then half a second more, and then add their initial position. So they all kind of like go away. Let's see if that worked. Shows up, stays for a second, and then it goes away. I obviously did something wrong here because that's not going away. Or I'm missing, I see what's happening. I'm missing this one. So let's see, it stays for a second and then it kind of like goes away, but actually it's going away very slowly. So I'm gonna move maybe this way. That's too fast now. Let's just do like a couple of frames right here. Yeah, and then maybe at this point, I don't know if we wanted to rotate a little bit before it turns into an Apple Watch, or we could have like some kind of resizing effect. We could do so many different things, but let's just keep it simple for now. And I'm gonna grab my screen. And since this is the end of the animation, let me see the timing again. Stays, and then it goes back. So as it finishes transforming, or actually right here, right before it hides, that's the point where it's gonna start turning into an Apple Watch. So once again, I'm gonna hold my position and my size and everything else. I don't know if I wanna do, I don't know if I'm gonna change the stroke width, but I'm definitely gonna change the corner radius, the size, and the position probably. So I'm going to hold that position all the way until the end. And at this point, right before it's about to hide, I want to turn it into an Apple Watch. So let's just increase the size of this a little bit, or the length. I'm going to grab my screen. I'm going to turn on one more time my reference. This time I want to see my Apple Watch right here. And I want this size maybe from here to 9, 7.5 to 9. This is going to turn into Apple Watch size. So I'm going to use my resize tool to match that size. So I'm going to resize down. This is going to be a pretty dramatic resizing, so we might have to tweak the origin and the position a little bit. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, and once we add that bounce, it might, yeah, it's just kind of like going a little bit all over the place. So we can tweak that if we want. I mean, I don't think that looks too bad, actually. I think I'm just going to leave it like that. And then for the corner radius, I do want to get a little more dramatic with it. So I'm going to do 50 or, yeah, maybe 50 or 55 to make it a little more rounded. And then I don't know if the stroke width should change. Let's see. So we have 10. Maybe we can go down to 8 just to make it, or maybe it should be thicker. Maybe 12. I think I like 12. And then let's see, what else do we need to change? I think the position's fine. Everything's staying in the middle. Everything's transitioning perfectly. Again, if you don't want it to move so much as it transitions, you can always add some position animation in between some of these different stages. But I think for now, I'm happy with it. So the next thing I want to do for this Apple Watch animation is add the notch. So I'm going to use my reference here to draw the final rectangle. Or actually, we need one more after this for the bands. I still have my color there. And then I'm going to add a little bit of a radius for it. I think, should it be completely rounded? Let's see, like 6. I think that looks good right there. And then I'm going to do my band. So I think another rectangle is going to be perfect for it. Our purple. And then a little bit of a corner radius as well. So I do want to check the alignment of this and put it there, even though I think we have lost a little bit of that alignment as our animation is going. So I'm just gonna align it visually, and then we'll see if we need to adjust it. So before I do that, let me just turn off that reference because we definitely don't need it anymore. And then this is the digital crown, I believe it's called, for an Apple Watch, the little button on the side. And then I'm just gonna put it in the middle. Okay, so for the digital crown, let's think what we want to do here. I think I don't want to do a mask necessarily. I think I can just go from here and out and do the little bounce. And I think that's probably gonna be enough for it. And then for the bands, I think I just wanted to resize. So it goes from 0% opacity and then it resizes from the top down. So pretty much like this. I think that's gonna be perfect for this. So let's go ahead and do the digital crown first. So once we reach that final size here, that final transformation, let's go ahead and select that digital crown and we're going to add a position animation. So animate position, that is the final position that we need for it. And I'm gonna go forward maybe 1 second. I think that's probably too much. Let's do 5.5 seconds and then hide it kind of like under the frame. I might have to tweak that timing a little bit. Let's add the bounce. Easy out back should work pretty good. And I think the final position should be a little bit farther away from it so we can actually see like the separation between the two elements. And obviously let's do the animation, the opacity animation. So final there, it goes from 0 to 100. So that way we're not seeing it too early. I think maybe I'm gonna move it slightly so we have time to kind of like see the watch first, and then it kind of like pops out of like from the side of it. And then at the same time I want to animate my band, and then I'm gonna do a resize animation or a size animation. So let's do size. I'm gonna save that final size and position and go forward to the same time. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but we'll see what that looks like. And then I'm just gonna resize that. It's gonna turn into this little line into like the final band for the Apple Watch. So once more, I'm gonna add that opacity animation from 0 to 100. Just like that, making sure we add in 0 here. And there we have it. Obviously now this is the bands need to go behind. I'm gonna add the ease effect to it as well for the bounce. And the bands need to go behind the whole thing. So I think I mentioned earlier that we were gonna have a fill color for the screen, but I didn't want to add it yet to see the reference. So at this point I'm gonna do that because I want my bands to go behind. And I also want the actual screen to have a little bit of a fill, just to, so it doesn't look empty. So that doesn't need to animate or anything. That's always going to stay the same size. And then I'm just going to move those bands behind my group here. And that way it just looks like it's behind the whole thing. So there we have it. That's a final transformation for our device. I'm still seeing a few things that I would probably tweak a little bit more and like spend a little bit more time adding more details, more elements, more transitions. Like there's so many things you can do here. But just to keep it simple for this tutorial, I'm going to do the final step, which is turning the whole thing back into a mobile device. So once again, I do need to hold the final look of it for maybe like half a second. So let's just add those keyframes to 10 seconds here. I don't know why it's doing that, so just let's do it manually real quick. And then I wanted to, we could do a rotation before it turns into mobile too. Maybe like a little rotation of the whole thing before it turns into mobile. But again, I don't want to complicate things too much. So let's just go ahead and make everything disappear, like the bands and the digital crown. So I'm just gonna copy the initial ones here. So like everything kind of like goes the way it came. Hold, goes back, but that's too slow. So let's change it to maybe around here. Hold, and then it goes away. And then at 11 seconds, I want to turn this whole thing into a mobile device again. So that way it can loop and do like that perfect seamless loop that we're going after. So let's see how we can do that. At this point, everything needs to hold until our different elements disappear. So around here. And that is where we have the final keyframes for the digital crown and the bands. So I'm going to copy all my hold keyframes here. And then I'm going to go forward to 11. And then I'm going to paste my size, my position, and my origin here. Let's see if that works. So it kind of like And then my rotation too. I think I have to. I'm just gonna copy and paste everything. So let's just copy everything. So I just need to make sure that these are also holding all the way to the end. And then that transforms back into an iPhone. So I think that's a little too slow. So let's just bring it down to 10.5. And then it turns into an iPhone. And finally it turns back into an iPhone. So I'm gonna crop this to exactly where this animation ends. And then let's see if everything's working correctly. And it looks like we have a perfect loop. So it turns animation there for the different sizes. That looks a little weird right there. I would probably tweak it a little more because I feel like it's not going away soon enough. And it's kind of like staying for a little too long there. So I would definitely tweak the timing of my animation here. Like this frame right here doesn't look good at all. So let's fix it real quick. Let's bring these back a little bit. And then yeah, there we go. I think it was just a little too long. So now that I tweaked it, I just made it one frame. So there's no frame in between doing the weird transparency. And there we have it. A seamless loop from device to device. Cool rotations, cool transitions. We used that bounce animation quite a bit. And yeah, it's a seamless loop.
And that's a wrap. You just created a perfect looping device morph animation in SVGator. If that was helpful, give this a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to this channel. I'll catch you on the next one.